Hello and welcome back to the X-Files Revisited. We are on to episode 17 of season 5 already, which I think we've already discussed this, Brian, is the best season of the X-Files thus far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy. I think far and away. Like these last few could be crap, and I'm not sure it'd change anything.
No,
To be honest.
it wouldn't.
So yeah. But All Souls now. I going into this one.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'd kind of. I couldn't remember anything except that picture you can see behind us there. I was like, yeah, I remember the girl, kind of with the eyes burnt out.
Mhm.
Couldn't remember anything else, except as soon as I started watching it. As soon as I started watching this, it all came flooding back, and I was like, okay, the four-headed thing, yeah. And then I went, oh, Graham's gonna hate this one.
Brian,
It's like,
I don't know what it is. Anything with, like, see if it's got like a thematic that leads into a religious aspect, fine. See when it's based solely on religion, I am like, kill me now,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
not to get ahead of myself, but this
yeah.
episode did last for 5 hours, didn't it? Yeah.
This was the feature length one, right?
Yeah.
I would say watching this time around, I'm probably even back when I used to watch them constantly, to be honest.
Mm.
The closest relation I would say that this episode has would be Revelation or Revelations, which was the one with the Hills Have Eyes dude in it,
Yep.
where it was, yeah, there was like a preacher and
Michael
what a
Berryman.
fight. Yeah, and they were fighting. It was like heaven and hell fighting over this boy. Well, this is pretty much that again, except rather than heaven and hell fighting over a boy, it's heaven and hell fighting over 4 girls. So yeah. Yeah, can't wait to hear what you say. I've got some thoughts. I've definitely got some thoughts,
Okay.
but
At least one of us does.
at least
Anywho, shall we play our guessing game?
yes. Where do you think this ranks currently amongst the 217 episodes on IMDb?
Now,
Which I will say, I went through again today.
right, okay.
Just because I thought because I wrote down the ranking ages ago and I've kind of just stuck to that. And since spotting the fact that Bad Blood jumped up to the number 1 spot past Clyde Bruckman, I thought, you know what, I better keep this a weekly thing rather than relying on that list. I'll check before we record each week. And as I was going through it, loads of episodes were jumping out at me. I was like, that should not be that high. That should not be that high. And then, like, as we're getting down, I'm like, that should not be that low. That should not. So yeah, I just there are a few crimes against the X-Files from fans on IMDb, I would say. But with that said, where would you think this ranks on IMDb?
Ooh, okay.
I was going to ask you then. Actually, where do you think this should rank versus where do you think it actually ranks?
Well, do you know what? I want to talk about it to figure out where my ranking really lands on this one.
Yeah.
But where I think it lands on the IMDb, I'm going to go 157.
Ooh, close. It's 153.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Okay. All right, then.
So thank you for joining us on the
Oh, man. Right. So, Father McHugh. We start this episode with Father McHugh, a character that they they seem quite intent on bringing back a fair bit
Yes.
throughout this season, which I do appreciate because it feeds into a lot of the themes, the character arc of Scully throughout this season.
We ask the question that we always ask when we get a reoccurring character.
What was the question? Go on, remind me.
I do not remember him.
Serious? You don't remember this guy, dude?
No.
Man, you seriously need to get seen to. You've got an issue going on.
Now I sit and make notes on all these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Complete blank. Not until you said it right there.
Oh, man alive. So this is the guy, this is the father, the priest that appeared in the 3-parter that opened the season. He's the one that, was Scully's priest. Her mum got him to show up on was it either Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. And she kind of got blindsided by it. And then that's what kind of sparked her journey into looking more for her faith. And at the end of that 3-parter, she invited Father McHugh into the hospital to pray with her. And that was kind of like the completion of that mini arc across that 3-parter. And then later in the Christmas Carol and Emily 2-parter, once again, he popped up just to kind of remind us that, yes, Scully is, this season, she's dealing with her faith. She's kind of drawing closer to her faith, closer to God, going back to, the faith she had as a child. So, so this is that guy. He's back again.
Of course, make a huge impact. And he's back.
He may as well be wearing a blonde wig, quite frankly.
Who?
And if you're new to this show, you really do need to watch our previous episodes to have a clue what that reference was about. But so Father McHugh, we've not even got past the first scene yet. Father McHugh arrives at a family's house to perform a baptism on this disabled girl. I can't remember the names of her condition because it's those unpronounceable things that only doctors can pronounce. But she's born with 6 fingers, and she's obviously got issues. I'm sure that's the officially politically correct terminology for it.
Yep.
So this girl can't walk. She looks like she really needs taking care of.
Yeah.
And then once she's been baptized, her father sleep at night, hears a noise, wakes up, looks out the window, and sees his daughter walking down the street. He goes out into the rain to see what on earth's going on. He sees someone, a shadowy figure that she then kneels before. There is a bright light. And when the bright light is gone, the shadowy figure is gone. And all that is left is his daughter with her eyes burnt out, as you can see kind of in the picture behind us. Thoughts on that as an opening?
A couple of thoughts. I really kind of like the idea of the sort of baptism and then the daughter being up and walking about. Like I thought, this could be an interesting angle to go. Almost as if taking on the Lord being baptized is kind of like cured her almost. And I thought this could be an interesting angle, only to see like the man in black burn their eyes out, and I was like, a little bit disappointed. But it was kind of cinematic opening. I really liked it. Kind of creepy as well,
Yeah.
It was interesting.
And this point, it's hooked you at this point. All right.
Yeah. Just interesting.
The fact that she's on her knees as well in like a prayerful kind of, it's like what's going on here. But so we go from there to Scully going to confession.
Yeah.
And she starts talking, and she said, "We're in maudlin Scully territory here.
Yeah,
we're in this. This is hashtag not my Scully."
Yes. Yeah. I could just quickly say what I dislike about this sequence is it goes on the entire episode.
Yeah.
Where they keep like they play out a scene and then they'll have a direct commenting on that sequence and what it's supposed to
Yeah.
mean, and it's like it feels like storytelling hand holding all the way through it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't. It's
Yeah.
just it doesn't give you a chance for the thematics to kind of sink in for you to pull out the story yourself. It
That's
is,
my
and
biggest
I
takeaway.
yeah, I don't want to say it, but it's preaching like it really
Yes.
is.
Yeah. It's my biggest takeaway from this with regards to the negatives is I feel like it's exposition. I mean the fact that and they're relying on something that they did in
Mhm.
Revelations.
Yeah,
Like you go back to Revelations and they had the confessional stuff with Scully in that, but it wasn't all the way through.
yeah.
And when she did do the confessional scene, it was right near the end. And I thought, I mean, I know you weren't that big on that episode, but I thought that scene had power
Mhm.
because it kind of wrapped up where Scully was at in that moment, rather than constantly going back to it
Yeah.
and saying, "This was how I was feeling." Well, yeah,
Mhm.
we see how you were feeling because we've
You
just
can
seen
see
the
it.
scene. We don't now need to come back and have you hit the nail on the head and tell us what your inner feelings were at that time.
Yeah.
Any fan of the show could like you see that sequence where she, because they do a flashback here. She goes, Father McHugh basically entices her into this case, and he out and out says, "Look, I think you'd be the best person to deal with this family because
Mm.
you understand their loss." Now, he doesn't need to say much more than that for us to go, "Oh, yeah, she's recently just lost a daughter."
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
which we had no emotional attachment to.
No.
And it was spelled out there. We don't need that stuff in the confessional. So, like, yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree with you. Every time we go back to the confessional, it feels like nothing more than an exercise in allowing Gillian Anderson to act, but because
Mm.
she's giving us maudlin Scully, depressed Scully,
Mm.
it's again it's not the Scully I want to see. And all the way through this
Yeah.
episode, we'll get to something later with Mulder, and I'm gonna say something up front that my suspicions are that this is because it's down to who's written it. Now, so this one's written by Frank Spotnitz,
Mhm.
and I think it was John Scheiban. I could be wrong on that one, but there's two writers on this one. It's not Chris Carter, right?
Mm.
And now I know I've been down on Chris Carter in the past, like particularly when he tries to ape Darren Morgan. Chris Carter isn't so good at doing the Darren Morgan episodes.
Yeah.
What he is good at doing, or was good at doing for the first 5 seasons until the show went on for way too long, is mythology episodes.
Mhm.
He's very good at doing them. Go back to that 3-part.
Yep.
We loved that. We pretty much gave it 5 stars across the board. He's great at the mythology stuff, and I
Mhm.
personally think he's good at dealing with issues of faith,
Mm.
because he has a faith himself. He is equipped to kind of see things from a faith perspective, and I personally think, oftentimes, and we've
Yeah.
discussed episodes where he'll bring something up that for me is an issue of faith, but for
Mhm.
you has just gone over your head, where it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really come at it from that angle. I came at it from this angle. And for me,
Mhm.
that's good writing,
Yeah.
because it should hit you that way. It should hit you in a way that a person of faith is going to take something from it, but someone who doesn't have a faith isn't going to feel like they're being punched in the face with a Bible.
Yeah.
So I do think Carter is good at those kind of episodes for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, Frank Spotnitz isn't a person of faith. He's an atheist. He often had battles with Chris Carter on the, I've said this before, you go on the behind the scenes stuff on the second movie,
Yeah.
and they both wrote that movie together, and it was essentially a tug of war. Chris Carter
Mm.
wanted to discuss matters of faith. Frank Spotnitz said, yeah, I'm not interested in that at all, and tried to rein that in. And I think when the two of them go at it together on a script like that, it can work pretty well, because you're having two competing voices that allow for two sides of the argument to get into the episode. Makes it more thought-provoking. Here, there are moments in the episode where Scully shows real signs of weakness from the standpoint of someone with a faith perspective. Like there are times in this when she just lets Mulder roll all over her, and I just, again, I don't like it. I don't like seeing Scully be this weak. We've seen her challenge Mulder with things like, like really go for him, where like even when she's got no case in which to do so, she still manages to throw an argument in with confidence. And we don't get that here. So anyway, sorry, but I've gone off on one. Talk about a tangent. But yeah, so she goes to see this family. The family brings up a lot of memories of Emily, all those memories,
Both of them. Yeah.
Both of them.
Meeting her, saying goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, that's the other thing about this, is that every time we go to that confessional and we see Scully being this maudlin kind of like with carrying this huge weight of having lost this child, all I can think of is no one cares about your child, Scully.
Yeah.
Like it was a non-event. It's like she barely registered because, like Graham said, you met her, then you said goodbye. It's like, give me a break. So Scully visits the coroner, who speaks as though it's biblical. So you've got this coroner that is like, traditionally in TV shows, coroners are just like very dogmatic science, just kind of.
Oh yeah, they're always eating a sandwich over a dead body, aren't they? Yeah. Always
talking to the corpses and stuff. What are you going to show me? What are you going to show me? Get a grip. But no, this one's like she's so staggered by what she's seeing that she's like, actually, this is taking me back to my early days at Sunday school, and she's kind of like, this may be a matter for someone who has a faith position. So yeah. The priest, Father Gregory, this is his introduction. So we get introduced to this priest, Father Gregory, who has an upside down cross in his car, kind of dangling from his mirror, which is a real sign of someone you can trust.
100%.
Yeah. So he stops. He goes into this like orphanage that looks more like an asylum, quite frankly, and he's there to pick up this girl that just happens to look exactly like Emily Perkins. So this Emily Perkins, one of the Ginger Snaps twins, Ginger Snaps sisters, I should say. Like I said last
Emily
episode,
Perkins, is it?
Emily Perkins, yeah. So we've had Catherine Isabella in a previous episode this season, and now we get the other Ginger Snaps.
Another barnstormer.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put a poll up at the end of this. Which Ginger Snaps sister has the better X-Files episode?
Yeah.
It's a toughie. It's a real toughie. Okay, so so he's there to pick up this girl because he wants to adopt her, but this guy who works for the adoption agency, Adam Starkey, an actor that I can never remember the name of, but he's been in everything. He's been in West Wing, he's been in Transformers. You see him cropping up everywhere.
He's always like a government agent or a soldier or something. Like always.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm pretty sure he was a government agent in West Wing, actually. So yeah. He shows up, this Adam Stark. He's like, there's been a whole mix up. I've taken over the case, so now I need other paperwork. And right off the bat, this guy screams dodge.
It's because you've seen him in everything.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not just a bit part. Like, he's here for a reason. Come on.
But the thing is, normally in most things I've seen him in, he is a good guy. He does often play that protective kind of. this is a guy who in outside of his acting stuff that he does, he's a motivational speaker. That's what he does as a secondary job to his acting. This is a guy who you feel like you should be able to trust him. But it's really the camera work. It's the heavy-handed direction.
But it does the kind of role reversal here of the dodgy, untrustworthy priest and the good bureaucrat who's trying to do his job by the books. It's really the other way around kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like if they just had the conversation that they have and then they cut away as soon as the priest storms off, it'd be fine. But after the priest has stormed off, we turn back to Adam Starkey and the camera starts to come into him and he looks down the corridor like, and it's like, bad guy. instantly like, bad guy. Yeah. It's like you've just spelled it out to us through your camera work, through your heavy-handed camera work. It's ridiculous. But yeah, right off the bat, I'm getting Revelations vibes.
But do you know the good thing about this character? What? Every time he turned up in this episode, I couldn't remember what part he played earlier on in the episode. So I kept getting them mixed up. So this is the first time this has happened to me where I recognised the actor, but I couldn't remember what his name was, his character, or what he did within this episode. So every time he turned up, I had no idea what he was there for.
Okay.
So yeah, that was it.
Scully, again, more heavy-handedness. Scully's at her desk. She looks at a picture of Emily. She pulls it out all like, with both hands. Then she's like, just to hammer home that point that she's now thinking of Emily. Mulder returns to the best part of the entire episode. Okay.
Yes. Phone call. Where he is, yeah.
So Mulder's like getting back to Scully. Obviously, Scully's called him at some point, so he's returning her call.
He's just left the theater.
Yeah, he's like, "You're gonna have to be quick, Scully. I'm left a tail. I'm working a tail at the moment." So she says, "Look, can you look into this girl's adoption for me? Just but keep it on the down low because this is kind of an off the books kind of thing." And he's like, yeah, sure. Hangs up the phone, runs back into where he came from, and it's a cinema with clearly a porn movie being shown.
It's a porno theater. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like it's wholly intentional because there is all these things throughout it where you're pretty sure he's just sitting watching porn in the X0517 down in the dungeon.
Oh, man. But the thing is with Mulder, whenever these porn things kind of crop up, it's always on that thing where it's like, it's not inconceivable.
Yes.
That he is actually on a tail.
It's not. But,
I can imagine like cutting to another scene where the bad guy leaves and Mulder is genuinely following someone. It just so happened
I would love to have seen that scene where the bad guy's like, he's on the phone, like, I'm going to meet somebody. I just need to kill 2 hours, and like walking by the theater and just going like, all right, I'll just pop in here.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So the orphanage girl is killed by seemingly the same force that killed her sister, her twin sister, at the beginning. Once again in the prayer kind of stance. Mulder arrives at the scene of the crime with the adoption info, kind of giving Scully a bit of sass because it's like, you kept a few details out, didn't you? It's looking a bit X-Filey this case, isn't it? She's all like,
"You're walking out in me, Scully." It's just
yeah. She's like, "Look, it's not like that. I was brought in by my priest. I'm here for favors. It's getting a bit out of hand."
But I loved it if he went, "Yeah, sure," and I go to porn theaters.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, so he reckons they're looking for a religious nut job. When Starkey arrives.
Is there any other kind in TV or movies? I think there's really not, is there?
No, it's not. If you're religious in a movie, you're either a nut job or you're a Ned Flanders. And the only time you're not one of them things and you're a Christian is if you're in a Christian movie.
Yes.
Or something made by Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, just I don't like Mulder in this episode as well. Okay,
Yeah.
like I feel like Mulder in this episode is Frank Spotnitz's soapbox.
Yeah.
I feel like Frank Spotnitz is using Mulder in this episode to put forward his opinion that all the God stuff is nonsense.
He's very
And
antagonistic in this one, and it's not
yeah,
like it's angry antagonistic, you know.
yeah. It's just really unnecessary. It's so like talking down to Scully
Yeah.
all the time.
Uh-huh.
Like he knows she's a person of faith, and it's like even if he doesn't believe this stuff, I feel like he would be more sensitive to her as a
Well, in her
result of
current
it.
state as well,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
she lost that kid that she loved for 2 days, and then she's like toiling with the idea of it and stuff. You could be a bit more sympathetic, but I think they paint it as almost like a panto villain, because later on in the episode he's got like a black leather jacket and a black roll neck on, and it's like something you've never seen him wear before. I thought it was funny.
I just feel like if Chris Carter had been a bit more involved, because it's also worth mentioning during this time, Chris Carter had stepped away from the X-Files quite a bit because he was knee deep in Millennium.
Yeah.
So he had both X-Files and Millennium going on at the same time whilst prepping or helping to prep the movie.
Yeah.
And shoot the movie. And so the show was kind of in the hands really of the other showrunners, which, you know, Frank Spotnitz being one of them. And I feel like if Chris Carter had have had a bit more hands-on this episode, from the writing standpoint, this wouldn't be so one-sided. This wouldn't be like Mulder walking all over Scully and Scully going, oh okay, yeah. Right. And that's what it feels like. That's not Scully to me, and that's not Mulder to me. This is a writer taking his opportunity while the cat's away to essentially poo-poo something that hasn't been poo-pooed that much before. So, Mulder thinks it's all a nut job. They go to the crazy church. So this pastor, this Gregory, Father Gregory, basically he used to be part of the Catholic Church, but he broke away from the Catholic Church to start his own, which always sounds good.
Can I offer you a glass of Kool-Aid?
Yeah, not the biggest fan of the Catholic Church myself, but you know, I think when people start stepping away from it to set up their own churches,
if you're setting up your own, that's
you're in really dodgy territory. It's like I believe they call that pick and mix religion. I'm going to pick and choose the bits I want and neglect all the bits I don't want. So okay, so they go to see him, they interview him. And he's full on, like, you know, he says twitchy. The adoption.
He's twitchy.
Very twitchy. He's like, he's like, literally like sometimes. So he says the adoption was to protect the girl from spiritual forces, which, you know, admittedly makes him look like a nut job and pretty much confirms Mulder's suspicions. He's basically goading the guy right off the bat. So back to the confessional, which, you know, we needed to go back there. Yeah. Scully thinks Father Gregory was speaking in words that only she could understand. In other words, she's dealing with her. In other words, she's dealing with her faith. You know, this has been Scully's journey across season 5. Is she's getting closer to her faith. Mulder has kind of been distancing himself from his. That's been, and I've liked that. I've liked that exploration. But I feel at this point here, we don't need Scully to tell us this, because it's implied by the fact that she's going to go along, or with the investigation, with investigating it from Father Gregory's kind of point of view. I don't think we need to be told it. I think we need to be shown it. And the best way to show us that is by having Mulder and Scully talk it out, and not just have Mulder walking all over her. Literally have Scully come back with some answers that shows us that she's thinking differently, that she's on a different page, and accept that that's okay. It's okay to show someone not being on board with religion. It's okay to show someone being on board with religion, and it's okay to show two people going at it like that. I have no problems with that. That's a good way to spark dialogue. This isn't dialogue. This is, we're going to show Mulder poo-pooing it, show Scully being weak and not having the courage to stand up for her faith, and then later go into a confessional and tell us all the things that we should have been seeing play out between these characters. So Mulder dismisses religion once again, because they go outside, they have this conversation, and this is what I'm talking about. He just steamrolls through. Scully doesn't put up any argument whatsoever. She just goes from there to the autopsy. So she goes to autopsy the second girl, and she finds what appear to be like bony protrusions coming out the top of the shoulders. Like something that maybe wings might be attached to. And then she sees visions of Emily, which kind of really freaks her out, and kind of she gets all emotional. And
the most surprising thing about this sequence was that I actually knew who Emily was. So that was interesting. I still didn't care.
Oh man,
I still didn't care.
Sometimes a bad episode is the best episode.
Can be.
Okay, so Mulder has found another girl with Starkey. They've basically done some more digging, found this other girl. But when they get to where this girl was last seen, which looks like one of the slums that from I kind of
really does
kind of expecting.
We've lost it. It's gone. Yep.
I'm expecting
Death Row Alley again, isn't it?
I'm expecting a vagrant to come out with a hand-drawn picture of this six-fingered girl that he's seen.
And Mulder just to be like, I'm taking that. That's going next to my Neanderthal man, which I've drew breasts on. Anyone interested why we're laughing so much? That's a callback to season 1. I think it's episode 4, Brian, isn't it? Infamous Skid Row Alley.
Not 4, no, but
it's not 4.
Episode 4 was Conduit. Yeah, so Jersey Devil. Devil. Yeah, episode 4 was Conduit. So so they go to this alley. And they disappear into this kind of what looks like an abandoned building, and she's there. She's roaming around. The shadowy figure shows up once again, takes her eyes, and then Mulder shows up, as does Father Gregory. So Mulder puts a gun in his face. He's all like, where is she? Where is she? And Father Gregory's like, I came to protect her. She's in there. She's dead. And so Mulder goes in, finds her, and it's like, right, okay, whatever. Oh man. So
I do like. There's one moment in that sequence that I think is quite. I like it a lot. It's silly, and Mulder pulls the gun on the priest and says,
yeah.
"Move into the light." Like
Right.
I just thought that tickled me like so much. They're just telling a priest to go towards the light almost, you know? Like, I don't know why. I just thought it was so funny.
Mulder has found another girl with. Oh yes, that's that
Yeah.
one.
Interview sequence.
Yeah, so Gregory is at the station. Mulder mocks him for praying.
Mm,
Again, it's
yeah.
just constant mockery from Mulder. Anything of a religious kind of note in this episode, Mulder's just there to mock it. And it almost, yeah, I'm not even going to go there. I was going to say something else, but I can't be bothered getting into the debate about it. But so yeah, he's at the station. Mulder's mocking him for praying. He points out the upside down cross, and that's when Gregory looks to Scully and says, "Tell him what it means." It's like because Mulder's like it's like a sacrilegious thing, and he's like, "No, actually, it's not. It's so there's a story about Saint Peter who was crucified, and the legend is that he demanded to be crucified upside down as a mark of like respect to Christ because he refused to be crucified in the same way as Christ. Like how much of that is actual,
Yeah.
it ain't in scripture. So I take that with a huge pinch of salt. Thank you very much. As with much of the the stuff that comes up later in this episode. But yeah, so Gregory tells Scully to let him go so he can protect the fourth girl. The devil is after her, he says. And we can see from Scully's kind of reaction, her body language, there's something about her that's like, I might believe this guy.
Yeah.
But, rather than just going off that, let's go back to the confessional where Scully says she believed this guy.
That's the only thing that's said there. And then it just moves on.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's like a character commentary of an episode.
Yeah. She stands in the doorway. She takes an inordinately long time looking at him, which tells us she's doubting here. She's not just flat out believing he's the bad guy. She doesn't know which way to go. She doesn't know whether to follow Mulder or stay with him. So yeah, as if that nuance wasn't enough. Yeah. Back to the confessional. She says that she believed him. Mulder finds info on the fourth girl. Scully tells him about her vision of Emily, and he says she's losing objectivity and should step away.
And it almost feels like he's questioning. He never says it, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's like, what is a vision but a hallucination by any other means type thing. You're not in the right frame of mind. Mild psychosis, influence, whatever you want to say, is just like, again, it's just naysaying. But it's almost this part feels a little bit almost like gaslighting.
Yeah, patronizing. The way he puts his hand on the shoulder, and it just doesn't. Yeah. This isn't Mulder and Scully to me. Starkey kills Gregory after telling him that the three girls were taken from him. So Starkey was after the three girls to kill them, or to take them for the devil, so to speak. But somebody got there before him. And we now know that somebody was not Gregory, because Gregory gets killed without being able to defend himself. So Mulder goes to the fourth girl's house where the father, it seems, has sold her to Father Gregory.
Father of the year, folks.
Oh, yes. So this is a guy who got accused of abusing his daughter. He's on record as having abused or being accused of abusing his daughter several times in the past.
Yep.
But you know, social services, they like to keep on top of these things. He's sold her. So basically, he's pretending that he's still looking after her. He's still got all the stuff down in the Harry Potter basement kind of thing. But actually, what he's doing is claiming the checks, the social service checks, whilst Father Gregory was actually the one looking after her. So, give this man a prize. Scully sees a four-headed man, a seraphim, if you will. Now, this is where we start getting into heretical territory and whatnot with regards to biblical interpretation. So,
and awesome effects. God, it's so bad. Yep.
No, I don't know about you, but later.
Go on, get it right.
So later, when Scully goes back to Father McHugh, she's describing what she's seeing, and Father McHugh goes, "Oh," and he goes to his dusty books. He pulls one off the shelf, and he goes, "Is that what you saw?"
And she's I'm looking at it going,
and I'm looking at it going, "No, that's nothing like what you saw." No. I literally had to pause it and freeze frame it and go like, "Where's he coming from? Where's he going?" And I'm looking at it, and it's only when you pause it and you look at it for a good long while that you're like, "Oh yeah, I get it." It's like there's an eagle head on that.
What Scully saw was something from a PS1 game. Like, oh, it was horrendous. Now that did look like a hallucination. Do you know, like that wasn't a divine image at all.
Okay, so this thing, according to Father McHugh, who doesn't believe that Scully actually saw this, he thinks that she's having a bit of a mental break due to things in the case reminding of being too close to home, basically. So yeah, I love how a priest it reminds me of what's it called, the haunted house film, oh man, Amityville Horror, where the priest he goes to the church and he tells them, "Look, I've seen stuff, I've heard stuff in this house. There's something spiritual going on here." And literally these head priests, these higher ups, they're like, "That stuff doesn't happen. It's just just old biblical tales. They don't happen." That is like, these are priests. Okay, well done. So where are we? So Father McHugh says, well, if you go off legend, what it sounds like she's describing is a seraphim, which has four heads: the head of an eagle, a lion, a man, and
a bull.
Is
it a bull?
a bull or something. I didn't see a bull in any.
I mean, it's a load of bull.
Yeah. Well, so in the Bible, the actual Bible, the one that's taken as canon in pretty much any Christian denomination, seraphim are mentioned. The Nephilim are mentioned. Now, there ain't a right lot to go on in the Bible with regards to descriptions. We know that the Nephilim were giants, and that's pretty much all we're given. And that they was the inference is that they are the result of a union between between angels and human women. So that's it. That's all we're given. That's all we're given in the Bible. But obviously, that's enough for some people to just make loads of stuff out of. So now Father McHugh
in this like Bible multiverse part that's going on here, they kind of show like the four girls as well, don't they? Like, picture that.
Yes. So like, now I've not read any of the Apocrypha. Now, for those who don't know what the Apocrypha is, that is certain books that when the early church was putting the Bible together and deciding which books remained in the Bible and which didn't, the ones that didn't, that that they decided no, they're not going to be part of the Bible. Some churches went on to say no, we're going to still keep them, but they're considered what's called apocrypha, and that's because they didn't meet certain criteria in order to be included, such as the date of the person that would have written it and their closeness to Jesus and all this kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. But now Father McHugh mentions that these things, that the seraphim and the girls and the four Nephilim, that they're in the Apocrypha. Now I can't tell you if that's true because I've never read any of the Apocrypha. I've no desire to. I just But there you go. That's where the mythology of this episode is kind of sinking its teeth.
Okay.
Right. And the whole point there being that these four girls that are getting taken out by what we now can only assume is an angelic force, a seraphim, basically.
They've been taken back to heaven.
Yeah.
While a demon's chasing them.
Yeah. Presumably this is the father of these children. A seraphim fathered these kids and has now come back to reclaim them. And these kids are actually Nephilim, which kind of goes against the description in the Bible that they're giants, because they don't look that giant to me, but whatever. Moving on. Starkey says that the fourth girl is at Gregory's church. They go to get her. That is, he and Scully go to get her. Scully goes inside, but Starkey does not enter. So clearly this guy doesn't like to be on hallowed ground. I don't know if I don't know how hallowed this ground could be, given how heretical this priest has been. I don't know. It's all very confused, very muddled, very muddy. Scully sees his shadow, the Starkey's shadow. It seems to it looks like it's got horns. So yeah,
which I think is one of the best images in this episode. I like that a lot, like the play of shadows.
Yeah, it's a bit more subtle to some of the stuff that's happening here, and doesn't.
All it just needed a quick cut back to the confessional, going, I didn't trust him. I felt there was something kind of devilish about this guy.
Oh man, it's so true, so true. Oh, good grief! So she tries to save the girl, but the girl kind of changes into Emily. So Emily appears as a vision and essentially telling Scully to let me go. So it's this kind of really heavy-handed thing where it's like, you're not just letting this girl go so that the angel, the seraphim, can save her. You've got to let go of me as well. Look at the correlations in this girl's story. These girls are going back to God, and that's what you've got to let me do. Let go of me, because I'm with God. That's, now don't get me wrong. Anyone who's been following this podcast knows I'm a person of faith, knows that actually that particular element is something that I'm all on board with. I think that's a really great story element, a really great thing to look at. This is not the way to do it.
No.
This episode has bungled the good things that they've been trying to do. So
and this was the point where I was actually talking at the screen. That way, where you're just like, you're not engaged, so you're just kind of like playing along, and she's like, let me go, and I'm sitting there going, you barely knew me. Please let her go. Never have her back again.
So we're in the confessional for the final scene.
Thank God.
Scully cannot reconcile God allowing the girl to die whilst simultaneously sending Scully to protect her. So it's kind of like, why send me to protect these girls if he's just going to take them and kill them anyway? But then perhaps letting go of those we love is precisely what faith is. Meaning that if you can believe that someone has gone to a better place, then that's in and of itself is a faith that will help you to move on. So that stuff, those elements of that final confessional scene and the scene with the vision of Emily, I like in principle.
Yeah.
Don't like in execution. So yeah, that's the episode. Please go ahead and wrap up.
Okay, just to finish off on what you're saying there with the whole story and the thematics, it feels like they're trying to hammer home attack with a sledgehammer. You know, they just everything is just so heavy-handed and so preachy, which is not a joke, but it feels very preachy. I like elements of this, and I think the story's fairly decent in parts, and I feel like the thematic could be strong, but they're so eager to hold your hand all the way through this episode that it becomes patronizing and rather dull at moments. Mulder is not Mulder in this one. He is a complete arse, which he can be in moments, but
But
this
it's
time,
usually in a funny way, though.
yeah. Whereas this time it feels like a nasty arrogance, you know, not a playful one at certain times.
Yeah.
And then Scully's just moaning and crying all the way through this, and it's just not like, where's that inner strength that she has? And the moments of where she has faith, you still feel as if there's a kind of strength and power behind that, and she does kind of rationalize things a bit better. And I feel bad because, like I said at the start, religious episodes are not really something that I gravitate towards. I don't, but this one felt like completely egregious in almost every way. Like,
Yeah.
if there's a good story or it allows me to uncover the themes myself, I can live with it.
Yeah.
This one doesn't do it. For me, my scores went down talking about it. So I was higher than this. I'm going to go for a 2.5 on this one.
Yeah, I was a bit higher as well, but I think I'm going to join you on the 2.5. I wasn't that much higher. I had it at a 3.
Yeah, I was thinking 3.
Yeah, but I'll knock it down to 2.5. Very tempted to go 2, to be honest, given our discussion, but I do think there is a good story here. I genuinely do. I think this episode has got a lot of really good mythology. I think it's got a lot of really good ideas, but it's presented in the worst way. Heavy-handed, one-sided in many ways. This could have been a really great opportunity to, 1, explore, and 2, put to bed everything around Emily, everything around what Scully is feeling, and bringing us to a place where Scully's at with her faith, because clearly by the end of this, she is more in a faith position. It's just that the way it's handled, it feels like it's in a really weak faith position, and it's just it's not very well handled. 2.5 out of 5 from me.
Moving swiftly on, tell me a little bit about episode 18, the Pine Bluff variant.
Right. This is an episode that gets very highly regarded by a lot of X-Files fans. And if I thought the ending of it made sense, I would probably be on the same page. But now I can't remember specifically what the thing is that makes it hard to figure out. All I know is every time I go back to the Pine Bluff variant, there are certain scenes in it I remember that are like pretty badass. There's some really good Mulder stuff in it where stuff happens. and there's like it's kind of like a semi mythology episode. One of those mythology episodes where if you take it out, it has zero effect on the overall mythology.
Yeah.
But it does feel kind of like, oh yeah, it's touching on that side of things.
Mm.
But there's a certain thing like a plot twist or explanation or something towards the end where every time I get to it, I'm like, so what happened? And maybe watching it this time around,
Yes.
and going over it with you, maybe you'll be able to clear it up for me.
Mm.
But yeah, there's
Good. Sounds like a fairly solid episode, and a good discussion to be had on that twist ending kind of thing that you're alluding to, which should be fun. So yeah, looking forward to that. I hope you enjoyed us going through an episode that wasn't too great for us, but if you preferred it, then let us know in a review or a comments or some other way in the YouTube videos or in the reviews for whichever podcast service you listen to us on. We would be happy to answer any questions or comments that you have.
yeah. We've got 10 ratings on Spotify right now.
Uh-huh.
I think we can get that up. If you're listening, if you're watching this on YouTube, head over to Spotify. Just give us a 5-star rating. Really helps. Like
It
really
really
does.
does. Yeah.
So yeah.
10.
Same with
Come
iTunes.
on, people.
Yeah, come on, do it. If you listen, you know, we know we get those. We know we get a heck of a lot more people than that actually listening and watching.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people, then do us a solid. Come rate us.
Yeah. And after you've done that, we will see you next week for the Pine Bluff variant. Thanks for watching, listening. Bye bye.